Once again, welcome to the Test Tribes 19th virtual meetup with Aksha and Kailash. And before starting, I would like to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, BrowserStack. A huge shout out to them for being our exclusive sponsors for all small events and premier sponsor for all conferences. It is because of their help that we are able to come here every month and provide you with different things to upskill yourself. So, a great thank you for their help. Now, without any delay, I would love to call Aksa, who is our next first speaker. Aksa is experience of a test engineer with demonstrated history of working in fast-paced environment. She currently works as lead ET at Mulia, and we would love to invite her on the stage and share her knowledge with us. Hi, Aksa.
Hi, Vanshika. Thank you for the introduction. To start with, I'd like to share my screen. So, um, to start with, in today's session, I would briefly give you an overview of what context-driven testing is. But my talk would be majorly about scaffolding framework that we used in one of our projects. So, uh, so if you want to know more about context-driven testing, you can always go back and read. There are amazing blogs and articles by James Bash, Michael Bolton, and I think Rob as well. So you can go ahead, and if you don't find any, you can reach out to me over LinkedIn. I would be happy to help. So before we get into scaffolding or context-driven testing, uh, there's something that we can think about. Like, for example, you can see various tools here, right? So, uh, why do you think gardeners use different tools to prune different types of plants? Like, for example, for a rose plant, you would use a different tool, and you would use something else for a tree, maybe. That's because the way it has to be pruned would be different. The delicacy and the type of, if it's a flowering plant, it would be different, right? So the context changes with different plants and trees, and hence we use different tools. So that's the idea about context driven testing. So, what is context driven testing? Context driven testing is basically an approach in which we first focus on understanding the context of the project by asking certain important questions about like what is the project about, or how are we doing things, or why are we doing what we are doing right now. So such context, the core idea about context driven testing is asking the right questions at the right time and doing the test best with what are the resources which are available. So context driven testing does not follow, we don't say there are best practices that we should follow. We have good practices. We choose from good practices based on the context of the project. So why context driven testing? So the my favorite part in context driven testing is we focus on bug prevention rather than uh, identifying bugs at a later stage, or even after development. Our focus is mainly on bug prevention. Like, if there is a requirement which is given, it as a tester, we would want to find as many bugs there itself, or even before the requirement has come in. So it is bug prevention rather than saying, we got the build and we tested and we found so many issues. So that's not the idea here. Then another key principle or beliefs in context driven testing is that software is developed by the people, hence people set the context. So if I'm working in a certain environment or in a situation right now, and if it changes maybe a couple of months later, the people would change, the problems would change, and the context would also change, hence the solution would also be different for them. So so that's one of the beliefs of CDT. Then in CDT, like I said, we first understand the context of the project, or the if you're an organization, entire organization, we understand the context of how things are working over there, and then we come up with a test strategy. And like I said earlier also, the most important questions for us is what is going on, how are we doing it, and why are we doing it. So what, how, and why are three very important questions for us. And my next favorite point is that we believe that testing is a shared responsibility. Testers are not gatekeepers of quality. Quality assurance is not, something, quality cannot be assured only by testers. It is something which is a shared responsibility of everyone, an entire team, entire organization. So that is one of the beliefs. Now we will move to how to implement CDT. So this question is, I feel, bit might be a bit misleading, but like I said, uh, implementing CDT is something which we cannot really define. It can be different in different contexts, but I'm going to show how we implemented CDT in one of our projects. So we, in this particular project, we had this team grew in numbers, and we had new people joining in who didn't really have much CDT background. So to help people in the project, we came up with this scaffolding framework. So we called it scaffolding, and why, I'll show you in the next slide. So, like most of you would have seen, like when there is a construction work going on in a, somewhere, or if there is a building that is being built, you would have seen a supporting structure which surrounds that construction, that particular building. It is mainly, to support, the construction workers to, take the things up using temporary lifts or something, or to aid this maintenance and repair of the building. Also, you see the structure is built. So this is called scaffolding. So similarly, we came up this with this framework to support the testers, to think in a context driven approach, like think according to a context driven approach, and to bring a mindset change, a shift in mindset. So that's why we call this as scaffolding framework. This is a supporting structure that was came up with. Now, being said that, I would want to say this scaffolding framework, I think, came up a couple of years ago, and this was actually developed by Dhanashekhar Subramaniam and Paul Holland. Dhanashekhar is someone who is in Mulya, and he is the one who coached several Mulyans, including me, to come up, to implement this in our projects. So, like I said, scaffolding framework is not one size fits for all kind of a framework. It would change in different contexts, in different projects. But what remains same is the four quadrants in this framework, which is context, understanding, strategizing, execution, and influencing. Now, I would be talking about this all the four quadrants in the further slides as well, and I would show you how we did it in our, in our projects. So, in context understanding, when we are starting with something, a project, or in even in sprint activities, when we are starting with something, we first understand the context of what is this story about, or what is this epic about, what exactly are we working on, why are we working on it, and what is the impact that is going to bring on the business. If we are working on this, what is the business impact, how is it getting implemented technically, like how are we planning to implement it, how is the client or the organization, how was the organization managing before the implementation of such a new feature or a story, and why did we pick this particular story or this feature right now, why did we pick it right now, what was the challenge that we faced, or what was the improvement that we wanted to do and we prioritized it right now. So that's kind of context understanding, and the answer to all these five questions kind of comes only through collaborative approaches with the team, with the management, with people who are there in the organization. Then comes strategizing. Now that we have the context understanding and we have the five answers to all five questions, we move into strategizing the testing. So how we do that? We would, based on the understanding about the user story or the epic, we come up with test charters. We kind of group them in shallow, medium, or deep test coverage charters, and then we use several test strategy models to generate test ideas, such as if it is a mobile application, you can use Kopflung gun. For failure, you can use failure for negative tests, or SF Depot, which would cover everything, including API testing. And then this is something which we do in strategizing. Then comes execution. In execution, what I followed and couple of my other team members followed was session based test management. We would block our calendar, and all the distractions closed, all the Slack, email, all the other tabs in the computer is closed, and we focus only on exploring the piece that we are testing. Maybe it would be a 30 or 45 minutes session. That's something that we do in our project. And apart from this, we have pair testing sessions. We have mock testing sessions that we prefer to do towards the end of the sprint, or we even do it once one epic is completed before the release. And we would, after doing all this, we would add our session notes to the test charter, and close out comments to the user stories. Then comes the influencing part. the I totally believe that influencing is something that is common in all the three quadrants. We are, some way or the other, we are influencing the stakeholders, but still, at the end of our testing, we share our sprint closure report, or release progress, like how are we progressing with the release. And we also come up with highlighting the risk, by sharing some risk report or something like that. So that's part that comes in influencing. Now, that's just brief about how we have covered all the four quadrants in our project. Now I'll move on to the next slide, where I would show you guys how we implemented it. So to implement this scaffolding framework, we like I already showed the five questions in the previous slide, which is kind of a questionnaire that we went through. Apart from that, we also used a process map, which is a kind of it is a mind map which we use to track all our sprint activities, and high level, you know it would give a high level idea of what is going on in the sprint. And then apart from this, we continuously kept meeting the stakeholders, and whatever context understanding that we have, we would share it with them, like the product manager or the development manager. We would share the context understanding all the that we have, and we would show the test charters that we have come up with, and come up with, and we would come up with the agreed test coverage on the test charters that we have. So this is the mind map that I mentioned. Like you can see, in this particular mind map, we would, capture our daily notes. We would have the sprint objectives written out here. Sprint planning, like what are these are kind of a checklist that we try to follow before sprint planning, and before daily scrum, and how to strategize the test strategy execution, and before refinement meeting, before retrospective meeting, and before sprint closure. So by following this, the core thing that I personally found out about myself is that the following this helped me to prepare myself for each and everything that is happening in day to day work life. So for each and every meeting, we are prepared with our notes, and to with our questions that we want to ask. Our involvement with the team, it improved drastically. Our collaboration with everyone, that improved drastically. Then this is the context understanding part, where we ask the five mighty questions, I would say, like even DS says that. So here we get the context understanding. We we get the technical implementation, like we collaborate with the, if we don't know, mostly we don't know how the story is going to be implemented, so we basically collaborate with the developer, and we check, discuss with them, and understand how they are going to implement it technically. So what are the changes if they are doing a front end change in the code, what are the changes they are going to do, if it is a back end change, what are the changes they are going to do. So this also helps us to get a very good idea of what we need to cover in the testing. And as part of technical implementation, after the discussion, when the story comes to testing, we also go through the PRs and see what has been implemented, what has been changed, so that our we want to be sure that the test coverage that we decided and planned is the same. Then another thing is, another question, next question is that how the story is benefiting, like how is it generating revenue for the client, or how is it helping the client. That question, we get answer to these questions by collaborating with the product manager or development manager, or people who are actually thinking about the business, who are actually involved in business discussions. And why this story now? This also we get from people who are actually looking at the business side of a project. So, and the last question would be, before this, how was it being managed? Like, why did we prioritize this particular implementation now? So these are the 5 questions that we try to answer. Now, why this 5 questions helps us to get context understanding. It also helps us to talk with each person in their own language. So this is something Pradeep talks about in Hulya. Like, if we want to really influence people in our team, we need to talk in their language. If I'm talking to a developer, I need to talk to him in his language, as in there should be a common base. When I'm talking to the developer, he should know, or he should be able to communicate his implementation to me in a way that I would also understand him, and he would also understand why I'm doing this. Similarly, with the product manager, so or the person who is involved in business discussions, so when we talk their language, there is an influence that we are kind of making at them. And it helps in when it helps in the later stages as well, when we are highlighting the risks. They tend to listen to us because of the influence that we have with them. So it is a very good collaborative approach. Then once we have the context understanding, we come up with different we come up with charters, and we layer them in different test coverages. Like, for example, shallow would be something which is testing only the acceptance criteria. Practical would be something which covers the accessibility, or covers multi-browser cross browser testing, or compatibility issues, things like that. So that would be practical. And deep can be something like we are getting deeper into testing, and we are checking the performance and security. Again, this can change with context in different projects and different organizations, but this is what we do. Like, we kind of layer it in different layers, and then we get on a discussion with the product manager on like, what kind of coverage do you think we should be doing. So we get on a discussion, and we come up with with an answer that, okay, for this particular story we need not do a deep coverage, shallow should be fine. So we come up with a mutual understanding. And then, based on that understanding, if there is a story which has a practical or deep coverage, which we planned, but we are not doing it in the current sprint, then we come up with a mitigation plan. Probably we would add those charters as a backlog, in the backlog, as create user stories, put it in the backlog, and maybe plan it for the next sprint. But if we are not testing something because the current context doesn't need that level of testing, then we would not just leave it there. We would come up with a mitigation plan and plan it for the future. And while testing this, what are the issues that we prevented? Or even while asking the questions, what are the possible issues that we prevented, that comes in the prevention. Then we also do test designs. Test designs, like we layer the tests that are there in different layers. So when it comes to automation, we don't just focus on UI automation, because the more you have UI automation scripts, the more it turns out to be flaky, or the maintenance is high. So in this particular project, we do have kind of a focus on shift left approach. So we try to layer the tests, and we identify the tests, create a subtask in Jira, identify the tests, and get on a call with the developer. And we brainstorm that do we need more tests or not. We brainstorm with the developer, and then we discuss on which layer we can test this, which level shall we add this test. So with that discussion, we layer it on unit level, say, or component level, or integration, and the things that can be covered in exploratory, we put it for exploratory. So once we have had this discussion with the developer, when the story comes to testing, what we do is we go through the tests that the developer has covered. We would go to the PR, go to the Cypress, let's say, for example, in this screenshot, it's Cypress component test. So there would be a Cypress file. Would go there and locate the tests that the developer has written, so that and we'll take the link and paste it in the subtask. So doing this has helped us to know what we need to test and what is already tested when it comes to us. So we do this because when we are getting the build, the tests that were committed by the developer at component level or unit level, they have already been added, tested, and then we got the build. So we need not repeat the tests that have been covered in different layers. And after doing this, we would add the links, and we would focus only on the exploratory testing that we need to do, the charters that we have identified. And this is when, if we have charters, we do SBTM, which is session based test management. We do session based testing, or we can also do, we pair up with the developers or fellow testers or product manager, anyone. We can do pair testing, and if the scope is really big, we can even do mob testing. So the exploratory part comes here. And so, like I said, this gives us a clear idea of what are the tests that we have covered, and which layer is it, which level we are covering it. So we also create a Confluence page where we store all the user stories and its test design link, and we link, we mark it as which level we have covered it. And this is more of an epic level. Like if there is an epic, we add all the user stories, and we map it to all the relevant tests that have been covered in each user story. So this helps in the future as well. Like one of the challenges that I faced in my project was, before doing all this, before having this test designs, when there is a user story that comes for testing, and if I ask the developer would say, we have written component tests, but I would not have any idea what are the tests exactly that are covered in component, and what should I be testing. So that, because of which, I would end up testing what the developer has already tested in his own code. So doing this helped to know what exactly is covered, and what I basically need to focus on in exploratory. Then this is one of the test charter screenshot, where I had to do multiple test sessions, and here we add the test ideas that we covered while testing. So one of the things how I personally take test session notes is that I use a tool, Obsidian, and whenever whatever I'm testing, I would keep creating notes as well, and whatever I'm observing, I would create it in the Obsidian. And then once I have completed the session, I would copy paste everything in the Jira, and after the session is completed, only then I would go, if there is an issue that has to be raised, only after the test session I would raise an issue. The bugs or the issues are not raised in middle of the session is only purely for testing, nothing else. So this is a test session that we do, and the notes that we have. Mm. And then this is a closeout comment. So this is a subtask, test chart, a subtask in which I have added the notes, and this is a user story level. So when we are closing the user story, there are high chances developers or the product manager or anyone, any of the stakeholder, they might not go inside the subtask to see what we have tested. So we need to give a summary in the story level. So we put a closeout comment at a user story level, and we put the charter link, or if we have done the test design, we put the test design link. So this is the closeout comment that we add. Now I showed how we implemented scaffolding in Mulya in one of our projects. Now this question I kept it later, because if I tell you guys why we needed scaffolding, you might not be able to relate to it, so that's why I kept it late. So by doing this, it kind of gave us a structured approach, and to have a better context understanding of what is going on, and to have collaboration with the team. And it also helps, so by doing test design, we got better coverage, and we got better visibility on what is being tested, where it is being tested, and how it is being tested. So there's a notion that people often refer to when I ask, like if I ask someone what is exploratory testing, this is we did exploratory testing here. So if I ask someone what is exploratory testing, people tend to link it to ad hoc testing, which is like, and when you say ad hoc, you would often say that there's no documentation needed, so there's no visibility as such. But that is more of a myth. In exploratory testing, we can have enough documentation and enough visibility of what we are doing in testing without writing test cases, which is more of validation, pass and fail. That is not what we did. We brought visibility in exploratory testing in our team, and uh, we could communicate in a better way with the stakeholders about the coverage and the risk by doing this process. And it also helped in scaffolding is like something which helps in focus on all the four quadrants. So it helped in context understanding, strategizing, influencing, and execution in a very structured way. We were doing this in some way or the other, but it was not structured, it was all here and there. So by bringing this framework here, we could do it in a very structured way. And like I said, it helped in influencing and collaboration with the team members, stakeholders, and it also got us a lot of visibility. So yeah, that was it. This was more of like why we did scaffolding, and what we did as part of scaffolding framework in our project. And based on whatever I showed and whatever we have done in my project, maybe it's time for Q&A. If you have any questions, I would like to answer it based on my experience.
Hi, Aksha. A great presentation. Thank you so much for this. Um, we have few questions. I'll just show them on the stage. So the first question is by Senthil. What tool you were using for this project management?
We have used Jira, Confluence.
Understood. I hope that answers your question, Senthil. We have another question from Sharon. Can you provide more information on the tool you're using for capturing AT test session notes?
Yes. So I personally tried X-ray from Jira, but I was not really, comfortable with it. But so as of now, I'm not using any tool to, capture during test sessions. So the only tools that I use is, my there's this tool called Obsidian, which I use for my daily day-to-day activity, and to capture my daily notes and to capture the session tools. I think I create a folder over there, uh, as test session notes, and I create sub files in that. So I capture there. Apart from that, I capture using pen and paper on my notes. So if anyone else knows of a better tool, do let me know. I would be happy to explore.
Understood. We have another question from Senthil. I'll just. Yeah. The question is, what is test charter? Can you explain, please?
Yes. So test charter is basically it's more like, it's not test case. It is not very specific that test this by doing this. It is more of a broader approach, but we have the objective clear. So we have objectives. For example, if I have to say, if you have to test a login scenario, okay, simple login inputs, one input field and one login button. Let's say if you have to test it, uh, I'll just explain the difference between test case and test charter. So I hope it will be more clear. Test case is like, verify that user is able to input characters in the input field. Verify that user is able to input alphanumeric in the input field. Test charter would be explore the login username field or input field by passing various types of inputs, and to discover if there is an underlying risk. This is a very basic template that I've said, but the idea is, it is more about exploring. We would not, when we are getting the charters, we would not specify exactly what exactly we are going to test. That comes in the test ideas. Test ideas are pretty specific on what we are going to test, what we are going to cover in this. But test charter is just defining the objective of the session. So that's what test charter is. To know more about test charter, maybe you can connect on LinkedIn and I can share resources with you.
Understood. We have a question from Shreyansh. Is it part of regression coverage if no new requirements for scaffolding?
I did not get your question, but correct me if I'm wrong. Wrong. What you are asking is, if there is no new requirement, can we still do scaffolding? And as part of regression coverage. Okay, I got it. So it's not like, it's not necessary that we need to do scaffolding only with new features or new things that we are planning to release. Even in maintenance, we can do this. For example, if you are going to have a release which is focused on solving production issues, we would still need to answer 5 questions. We would still have, even if there is a if there is a regression testing that you are doing, we would still have these 5 questions to know there are some code changes that has been done. So what are the code changes that has been done, why it is done, and those 5 questions remains in all contexts, irrespective of what type of release we have.
Understood. We have another question from Shreyansh. The question is, how much time more it takes with scaffolding, where we need all to participate in quality improvement?
We need all to participate. How much time more it takes with scaffolding? Are you saying the overall time? If you're asking about the overall time that it took for us to implement this, it was almost coming. If the scaffolding framework was there since couple of years ago, but we had to refine it based on our project context. So to refine it and come up with and to implement it, it took almost 3 months. And it is a very slow and gradual process. Influencing doesn't happen in a day. It takes time. It takes a lot of efforts. So yeah, if it answers your question.
Got it. Another question from Pranavati. The question is, what exactly challenges addressed for customer review needs? So I think she's asking about the challenges that were addressed.
Customer review means. I'm not sure. Customer review means what exactly you mean by that, but I can, of course, say what challenges we faced and why we came up with this framework, if that is the question. Um, so we wanted, we wanted to do CDT in a project, and there were people with less exposure to CDT, and it was a very cross-cultural project, and we were not able to have that influence and collaboration. We wanted to work on that and improve it. Hence, we came, we implemented this. So that is one of the challenges that we had, and the solution was scaffolding framework.
Got it. Thank you so much, Aksha, for that answer. We have Sharon who is asking, how do you introduce scaffolding framework to stakeholders in a new project and to new project members?
Uh, this is again a very subjective question. I would say I don't have a very specific do this, do that answer to this, because what your project is about, what is the context of the project. I don't know that, but you can start with the 4 quadrants and the 5 questions. You can refine the questions. I'm not sure how it will fit into your context, but you can focus. As a tester, first you can start with context understanding, and improving your test strategy, and then slowly when you do this, you are somewhere or the other, you are bringing in collaboration. When you're bringing in collaboration, you are kind of introducing scaffolding to your team. You can't just go and say this is scaffolding and this is what I'm trying to do. Instead of that, you can start step by step, and through your work you are going to introduce scaffolding in a collaborative way.
Got it, got it. Um, we'll take one last question from Amir. The question is, what are the challenges you have faced while implementing scaffolding?
Challenges, I would not say challenges, but it was, to implement this, I had a lot of unlearning and lot of learning that I needed to do. The learning part would be that, before I go to, like I said in my presentation, when we talk to different types of stakeholders, we need to talk in their language. So before going to a developer, I need to have some knowledge of why I'm going to that developer, what am I asking to the developer, right? Because even their time is important and they're pretty busy. So to make it more fruitful, I had to do my homework. I had to spend a lot of time to understand certain business jargons or technical implementation, technical words. I had to do a lot of research to understand the architecture, and a lot of learning that I had to do. So this learning part came only because I faced the challenge when I went unprepared and asked certain questions, and they just asked, why do you need to do this, why do you need to know this? So I had to do my preparation, I had to learn, and then reach out to people. So yeah, that is one of the challenges, and of course I had a solution for that.
Got it. I think that ends all the questions. So thank you so much, Aksha, for this lovely session. It was really informative, and how you told the journey that you had while implementing this. It surely would have helped a lot of people in the audience. So thank you so much for doing this with us.